Hello, welcome to History Tea, a channel where I spill the tea on history. Today's video will be about the history of maternity corsets. They're as bad as they sound, so can't wait. I'm really excited about this video today because I love historical clothing and I think it's a great way to tell history. Like, you can tell what period something is based on the clothing and what life was like based on the clothing. Historical garments are what got me into history in the first place. And I think the maternity corset, specifically, in my opinion anyway, is a fascinating look into women's history and an issue that's still relevant today. Being pregnant in the Victorian era was an odd thing. It was almost treated like a crime. On one hand, women were expected to have children, many children in fact, in an almost overcompensating effort to have at least a few of them survive to adulthood. But on the other hand, they were seen as kind of pure and virtuous beings, and them being pregnant was evidence against that idea. Women were often kept from the public eye during their pregnancy, especially during the seclusion period, which you can assume what that was based on the name. The seclusion period could last anywhere from a few months before the birth to after they got their figure back. In the Victorian era, a small waist equaled femininity. So the smaller the waist, the more of a woman you were. And that's why the corset was such a huge thing. Now, there is a common misconception that the corset was an oppressive garment pushed onto us by men. And while there was a societal pressure to wear a corset, and they were physically oppressive as well as emotionally oppressive at times, women did choose to wear them. In fact, some men actually hated the corset because the tiny waist took away from the idea of the motherly woman. So again, women were seen as pure and motherly, but then were publicly shamed when they actually did fall pregnant. I can't find an exact time or date for the invention of the maternity corset, but I know that it was sometime in the 19th century, most likely the Victorian era, so 1837 to 1901, although most clothing historians do not count the Victorian era until the 1840s, but it was sometime during then. There was an earlier form of a maternity corset, kind of. It was a form of stay, not corset, and I'm not going to go into the long, complicated history of corsets because it gives me a headache just thinking about it. But a stay was a form of corset. Think of the ones that you see in movies set in the 1700s, like the Patriot or Marie Antoinette, where their chests are just pushed all the way up. That's a stay. There was a similar garment to the maternity corset in the Victorian era called the maternity waist, and basically the maternity waist also curved around the belly like the corset did, but it didn't have any boning in it, so it was a softer option, and it usually buttoned down the front instead of laced up the sides. Usually pregnant women would wear their normal corsets and loosen the laces as needed until they couldn't fit into it anymore, and that is when they would switch to the maternity corset. So the maternity corset wasn't worn the whole pregnancy. The corsets either laced all down the sides or only halfway down the sides starting at the waist. This made it easier to adjust the size of the corset as the belly grew. They also had no boning in the back except for one running across the waistline. And usually they curved around the belly to support it. And some included snaps at the breasts to make nursing easier. And there were also specific nursing corsets that had the snaps but a normal waist. Maternity corsets were often advertised as healthy. In fact, there's an ad for a Gossard maternity corset that promises better babies. So, that's lovely. The ad also states that it will be shipped in a plain package, which is a good example of the shame and need for secrecy that lorded over pregnant women. The main use of the maternity corset was to hide the baby bump. Working class women of the time were often fired when they were found out as pregnant because they were thought to slow down productivity. So they would use the corset to hide their pregnancy as long as they could in order to keep their jobs. On the other side of the class spectrum, upper and middle class women were kept from going to events. So, like I said earlier, people didn't want to see a pregnant woman, so they were often kept inside. and they would use the maternity corset to hide their bumps so that they could still have a social life. Another use for the maternity corset was support. Women who had been wearing corsets all their lives had weak abdominal muscles, and the support offered by the maternity corset was almost necessary. There was also breast support. The bra, as we know it today, did not exist yet at the time of the birth of the maternity corset, and by the time it did exist, it wasn't really widely used until the 1910s to 20s. So really, the corset was the only option for support. Finally, the most unfortunate use for the maternity corset was birth control. Women would tight lace either their normal corset or their maternity corset in an attempt to cause a miscarriage. It's unfortunate, but at the time there were no legal abortions, so it was either that or a dangerous and expensive and illegal procedure. The normal corset started to go out of style in the 1910s, but the maternity corset was still being used at that time. I couldn't find an exact time frame for when the maternity corset went out of style, but I'm going to assume it was sometime in the 20s. Women wore looser clothing then, and there was less stigmatism around pregnancy, and the bra was used more often, so there wasn't as much of a need for it then. But I'm sure, like with many other fashion trends, that some people continued to wear them for as much as a few decades after that. Maternity corsets were a huge part of Victorian maternity wear and of women's history. In my opinion, they show the struggle and unrealistic standards that women had to face at the time. Now today, body shape is still something that is seen as important in the public eye, and tons of women still wear corsets. Some of them wear them because they like fashions from another time, but they're mostly used to get a slimmer figure. And you can even Google shop for maternity corsets and find tons of options for waist trainers for during birth, for during pregnancy, and post-birth. This shows that there is still a huge societal pressure on women to keep their body shape, as if they never created the miracle of life inside them and popped it out into the world. And that's the tea on history. Thank you for watching. I hope you learned something new. If you want to see more, make sure to give this video a thumbs up and subscribe, and to click the bell icon to be notified when I upload a new video. As always, I will be linking all of my social medias in the description box below, so you can follow me there. And if you have anything specific that you want me to talk about, let me know in the comments or on any of my social medias. It could be a person, an event, or a historical garment. I also want to mention real quick this book that I have on Victorian and Edwardian fashions for women. It is really great if you love historical clothing. I recommend it. Also, if you are a collector or plan on collecting clothing, it has a price guide and everything, and it tells you like what's good and what's not and how to take care of everything. So it's really great, and I will link it in the description box below so you can check it out if you want. I think the milk I put in my tea was bad. Ew. I drank like half of it. It's got like this taste. Only put a little bit in. I'm fine, right? Uh-oh.